Welcome to the Ichi podcast. My name is NW Epic and my co-host Nan Mana. And this is this podcast that I decide to do once a year. And so now we're back. We're back just in time to talk about the Nintendo Switch. But we have a few different topics we're going to touch on, but definitely the Nintendo Switch 2. It is out in 16 days, which is kind of insane. Or I guess 17 technically, but we're almost around the corner for the next Nintendo Switch. I think we're both excited. Are you excited? Just generally, or?
I mean, I've been looking for one, but
Okay, so
it's not an urgent thing.
Interesting. Yeah, I asked you.
It's just the FOMO.
FOMO, I get you. Yeah, because I had asked you earlier, like if you had tried to get in on the pre-order, and you were like, no. So I thought you were insane. I have actually not, which is kind of crazy. Being the,
I mean, I didn't check day one. I checked maybe like 2-3 days later.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely the urge to like jump into the hype and grab one to be there on launch day, and just obviously, I say before we get into the meat of this, I think we both kind of feel this way. There's a lot to be excited about with this piece of tech. Like Switch 2 is going to be huge. Obviously, it'll have the backwards compatibility component to it. So it's not like you just out of the gate, you have nothing to play unless you're dropping like $80 for a new game. Like there's a whole bunch here to be excited about. But there's a whole bunch to be very concerned about as well. But I'm genuinely excited. I feel like this will probably be one of the strongest, at least in terms of like software that launches with Switch 2, like one of the strongest launches Nintendo's ever had. Just looking at all the titles that will kind of be available around that launch period. So yeah, it's I can understand people's excitement, and I can also understand people not being able to get into this because of the cost. So I guess let's not preamble on it. The Switch 2, so we both kind of watched, I wouldn't say we watched it together, but we were messaging each other when that initial like Switch revelation showcase, whatever happened, and Nintendo dropped all of the information or most of the information. And it was just so exciting to see the Switch 2, see the system, see all of the software that was coming for it. Like everything it just felt right. And then we saw the pricing. And then
I don't think the pricing's that bad.
Not of the console, of everything else.
Oh, okay.
Everything else. Yes. No, I actually agree on that. Like, I think for what it is, and especially now that we've gotten more details on like the specs, and obviously we know a lot more about the system, I think the pricing of the console is fine. We're going to be speaking in USD, but $449 for Switch 2, I think is okay. I don't think that's a bad deal. I know a lot of people would have wanted to maybe hit just that $400 mark, but I think again, for what you're getting, which is pretty much like a mid-range PS4, and when I say mid-range, kind of like in between PS4 Pro in the palm of your hand. Yeah, no, this is I think it's a good price. But let's look at obviously the number one launch title for Nintendo Switch, Mario Kart World. Absolutely, Mario Kart is always a top seller. It demands its price shoot. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, which is a Wii U port. Again, it's just the Wii U title upgraded with more tracks and some, fidelity improvements. But like it still to this day sales consistently, tops the charts. People love Mario Kart. So obviously there's a lot of excitement for Mario Kart World and all of the new, features and open, free roam and all of the different things that come with, this new title. But if you get it outside of the bundle deal, it is $80. $80. And I truly think this is not like a tariff pricing. This is just like, we think this game is worth $80. And now we're getting into that territory of like, I really feel like Nintendo is the company that sets the precedent for a lot of different things in the gaming industry, a lot of different trends, a lot of different tech. People copying Nintendo's, like they don't necessarily compete directly with Sony or Microsoft and like their own console wars per se, but like just throughout the history of gaming, Nintendo is kind of the trendsetter. And this is one of the trends I don't want them to set because, if they can they can absolutely justify $80 for Mario Kart World. People are going to buy it. But then what does that mean for new titles moving forward? What does that mean for the next Legend of Zelda, right? Because Donkey Kong Bonanza, it's launching at $70. That it also looks incredible. Again, barring price, I think it looks fantastic. I'm super excited for it. But it's $70. We have now entered the realm, and it's not just Nintendo. Other publishers and gaming companies have now announced that their prices are going to be increasing, and it's kind of nebulous if this is due to tariffs or due to other things. But now we've reached this era of where gaming is $70 a pop. We're almost at like $100 games. Like we're $30 off, and that's not including tax.
I mean, if you want to consider games that don't include all the content at launch, like a specific title, what, Civilization 7?
Yes. Which is absolutely
the
insane.
Extra edition and the 2 tiers above the base game is like $120, I want to say. To get all the content at launch.
Which is insane. And this is on top of the fact that they've already previously released this title for base Switch. And those base Switch users will not be able to upgrade, not to mention it's an inferior version. It's much inferior from what I've heard.
Wait, what are you talking about?
Didn't Civilization release on Switch 1? The newest one?
7?
Yeah.
There's no way it released on the first Switch. It doesn't have the power for that.
Oh, Civilization. Unless I'm getting it
it's not
mixed up.
Okay. Oh, well, it is on Nintendo Store.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Yeah. They released it. That's because I've heard about this because they released it.
Oh.
It has issues. It's not great. But they released it on Switch, and then obviously shortly after, now we know that it's going to be on Switch 2. It's probably going to run like a dream. But the original, the people who bought it on base Switch, they're not offering any incentive for those users to upgrade to the Switch 2 version. They're going to have to buy it all over again on top of what you just mentioned of like all the extra content, which will add up to like $120.
Looks like the upgrade pack will be $10.
Oh, wait, did they announce an upgrade pack?
Switch 2.
Am I missing?
It's on the eShop.
You know what? Well, then I apologize. This is why you look up your information before you open your mouth. Well, I think for a bit there, it was not, there was no mention of there being an upgrade pack, but now there's an upgrade pack. What I just said is redacted. So hopefully most of these games are going to get upgraded versions. Obviously, I think that's a good segue actually. There will be a lot of games that will be getting either enhancement boosts on Switch 2 or they'll be getting new Switch 2 versions, which is kind of an interesting sort of like, I don't know what's the best way to put this, but like it's just a little interesting thing to see with how certain games are going to get like whole Switch 2 versions like the Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom and titles like that, but then you have titles like Pokemon that are just getting enhancement boosts.
No, it's not getting a whole separate edition. The Breath of the Wild or the Zelda titles.
Well, they're kind of the way that they're marketing them because they're reselling them, right?
Because you can still, you can buy the Switch 2 version outright for like $70.
Yeah.
But if you already own the original, you just buy the upgrade.
Yeah, but that means you have to buy those, right? So like they're marketing those as specifically like Switch 2 versions more so. Like it is technically an upgrade if you already have it, but like they're like Switch 2 versions versus like again like Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. Those will just be like general enhancement boosts. Like if you were playing a game on going back to PS4, like playing one version of the game on PS4, it'll run better on PS4 Pro, right? Just marginal upgrades. And they do have a list of those titles that will have that. I don't know. It's not the worst thing in the world. It's just, certain games, they've put a lot more effort into, I guess, enhancing for Switch 2. So they're going to charge for it versus some of the other ones where it'll just be marginal enhancements to make the experience, somewhat better, like better frame rate or, things of that nature. But it's interesting to see. I mean, more so I bring that up because, again, like they're charging $69.99 or $70 for Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom if you buy those editions for Switch 2. And specifically for Breath of the Wild, that does not include any of the DLC, which I thought was insane. It is just
Is it $70 not including DLC?
not including DLC. Yes. So it's just based. Now I know this one for a fact that they have explicitly said that they're not including the DLC.
Yeah. It would be $90 if you want DLC.
But in my head, it's kind of like you've already got a full sequel out. Does it really cost Nintendo anything to just package the DLC with the Switch 2 version? Right? Are you really trying to charge people again? Because, I mean, let's be fair here. Most people who own a Switch are, already own Breath of the Wild. It's the flagship title. It was the launch title for the Switch. They probably have the game. They probably have the DLC. Probably many may double dip. Obviously the upgrade is there, but so for those people, sure, they might upgrade. But a lot of people like the physical package or whatever, or the one you collect, yada, yada, blah, blah, blah. Point is, for those new people or those people buying it for the first time who owned a Switch previously, why not just throw the DLC onto the cart? Like, it ain't that large.
Well, that would mean making new cards.
That would it. Well, I guess, okay, so are the Switch 2 cards, because I've seen a lot of talk about this, and obviously I'm not sure yet. We'll see when it launches. So is it from your understanding that the Switch 2, like updated Switch games that come in a physical cart are actually just Switch cartridges that contain the upgrade data?
We don't know. I don't think anyone knows. I doubt the upgrades will be contained inside the card. It would just be a license to unlock the thing from the eShop.
Which would make sense, but then when we start to get into the ethical thing of like, well, if these are just Switch carts, then why are you reselling them as Switch 2 editions at a higher price when people could just buy the original Switch carts? And then, there would be a trigger, right, on the... Because again, they're already offering...
I mean, because one of them wouldn't have the license to unlock the upgrade pack.
I guess I see what you're saying. But then when they technically...
that's basically how the virtual game carts work.
Maybe. I mean, it's interesting. We'll see once, we'll see soon how those work. But to me, it just feels like, again, if these are the old carts, one, they shouldn't charge extra for them. Because again, truth be told, even if we're making, not an excuse, but if we're saying like, okay, well, yeah, they would have to, manufacture new carts and then they'd have to install the data on new carts. So instead of doing that, just use the old carts and then maybe, put a license key on the cart. That still doesn't justify more price. You're using pre-existing, equipment.
Because it depends on how much storage the upgrade would use, because if Breath of the Wild itself takes like 7.5 gigs on an 8 gig card, and the upgrade to physically put on it takes another half gig, it's probably easier to just put a license for it instead.
I guess, but again, you can't charge me more for that. I mean, I forget what.
Well, they can't, because you're getting the upgrade pack with it.
I guess. I guess I see what you're saying. That still gets into the nebulousness though of like, are these upgrades specifically for these titles? You can buy
an original card if you want. It's not going to have the upgrade pack on it.
But this card is not going to also have the DLC. So here's the thing, right? Like, obviously this was Japan only, but I look at Japan, right? So like, there's the base Breath of the Wild, and then there's a physical card that includes the DLC, and then obviously there's now the Switch 2 versions. I mean, now I have to make this. Whatever, if I want a physical version, technically the best version to get is still that Japanese Breath of the Wild card, because at the very least it already contains the DLC. Now, technically speaking, it'd probably still be cheaper to just get either the regular and then the DLC, or the Switch 2 edition and then the DLC, just because those all-in-one carts can be a little pricey, especially for Breath of the Wild, just because of the collector's market and things of that nature. But I don't know. I think it's a little shisty. I mean, I get it, right? Again, if, like you're saying, the $9.99 is there to essentially, is for the upgrade, and then obviously you're just paying base Breath of the Wild cost. If you're already using pre-existing carts, I almost just feel like, again, it should just be a little cheaper. But Again, that's just the consumer
But
in me. That's not the business person in me.
why?
If you can charge for it and get it,
Why would they charge less?
because I feel like it's easy buy-in, and it's also less, because again, you're thinking about it, right? If I wanted to sell more Switch 2s, and especially now that I'm seeing that there's a lot of backlash on pricing, and obviously with the economic situation around the world, there's a lot of, there's less money to go around. If I'm going to be hard on like my Mario Kart,
Some would say that's America's problem.
well, it's everybody's problem because everybody is getting priced out. It's not just America at this point. Like America's economic situation affects the world, and that's not even like, being all like, oh, we're super important. I mean, that's just the realistic reality of it. Once all of our nonsense with the tariffs went into place, that affected Europe. That affects, the East and all of the countries, right? That affects everything. So, I mean, realistically, it is our problem, but it's everybody's problem when we're doing foolish stuff like this until, I guess other countries figure it out and they regulate without us. But until then, it's everybody's problem. And those prices that are, affecting Europe is just as similarly facing like, huge increases on all their consoles worldwide. It's a bad situation. But more to the point,
Are they really?
yeah. Have you seen the prices for like, just look at like Europe's prices or like the UK. Let me use a specific country. Like, hold on, let me pull up UK pricing. Cause I mean, just recently Xbox announced sweeping increases, right? Now, obviously Microsoft American based, but I believe Sony also did, because they've also increased the price of their PS5 as well. And that's just those two. The high prices for all of the like consoles and games for Switch 2 is similarly high in those countries as well. So it's not just our problems, but hold on, let me pull those up. Let me find UK.
Yeah, Sony increases PS5 prices in Europe, Australia, New Zealand.
Yeah. Like it's
I saw Xbox raised everything.
yeah. It's affecting everywhere pretty much. Now just this post right here, Eurogamer. This was April 8th, so this might be a little out of date. Hold on, let me see if I can find something newer. Okay, so this was 1 month ago, but it says Nintendo Switch 2 prices around the world converted back into USD. So obviously, excuse me, price in the United States is $449. So they're slightly cheaper when you start to do conversion therapy on some of these. But like Australia, for instance, is like, it would be $430 USD. Canada is $447 USD. Denmark is $629 US dollars. Finland 650. Germany 518.
Aren't those all supposed to be using euros?
Yes, but this is a converted. So they've converted the local pricing. So they have that on there too, but just for us so we can better understand it. They have the converted price.
No, right. But why are all the Euro countries have different pricing converted?
Again, that's going to be up to the countries. I wouldn't know why those prices vary so wildly between the European countries. Hello from the future. So don't record late at night because you won't have fresh brain to kind of answer questions like this. Just to cut to the point, the answer to this question is very simply that even though these countries share the same standard of currency, they are their own, for the most part, most of them are their own independent countries. And so that means they are subject to their own unique economic structures. What does that mean? Just think that each country will have their own taxes, their own tariffs, cost of living, the rate of pay for jobs, etc., etc. There's just a bunch of different variables that will sort of change the cost of different product within that country. And another easy way to kind of think about it is that the United States is not the only country that uses the USD. Obviously, our territories utilize the USD as well as some countries like Ecuador and El Salvador. So yeah, I just wanted to quickly chime in because that was a question that we probably could have answered, but it was late. If you're still watching, thanks for watching, and back to the past. But either way, I think you get the point of like, it's affecting everywhere. It's getting pricier. hobbies in general are just getting pricier, especially more luxury ones like this. I won't talk about it on this podcast, but obviously, again, the economic situation is also affecting the anime, especially the market for like Blu-rays and DVDs and stuff like that. But that's a topic for another day. The point is, from my perspective, especially if these Switch 2 editions are just Switch carts with added on license keys, I would make them cheaper. Because again, I'm just using pre-existing stuff that already exists. Make those cheaper, and then maybe you convince a lot more people to buy more of those. You know, at the launch day, because again, people are gonna have to make a choice, right? If I'm spending now, okay, let's fairly say a lot of people will probably get the Switch 2 bundle with Mario Kart. So that'll be $500. Okay. Do I want to get another game? Let's say, well, Donkey Kong Bonanza doesn't come out till July 17th. So let's look at the Switch 2 titles, for instance, the Switch 2 editions. So available at launch will be Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Mario Party Jamboree plus Jamboree TV, Kirby and the Forgotten. No, never mind. It'll just be the Zeldas. Huh. Hold on. Okay. Hold on. The two Zeldas, Civilization 7, Rune Factory, Guardians of Ozma, Hogwarts Legacy, Cyberpunk, Deltarune. Is there anything else? Street Fighter 6, Yakuza, Split Fiction, a lot of stuff. Sonic X Shadow. There's a lot of good stuff available. But again, a lot of those titles I just mentioned are going to be launching at $70, right? And so now we're having to make that choice of what do I want. We're gonna have a market full of titles, but like instead of sort of that organic buzz of like I'm gonna buy everything at launch day that they might get a lot of people to do, and then obviously the casual like trickle of like people purchasing after the fact, there's gonna be a lot less purchases. I mean, again, why would I buy Breath of the Wild when probably there's Cyberpunk on here. I could try Cyberpunk if I've never played.
I mean, see, I'm still not getting why the existing cards need to be cheaper, because the value is not the card itself, it's the software.
But that's what I mean. It's already software that's out there. Like it's software that's been out there for a while. And even I'm looking at this particular chart and it kind of has like some details of like what is really going to be enhanced from this version to the Switch from the original version. It still says TBA. Like the only thing it has for Zelda is HDR. Like I get your point of like, why would you? Because again, it's first of all, there's always the stereotype of Nintendo always holds its pricing for its games. And I get that, trust me. I think more so I'm looking at it from the consumer perspective of like, if I want people to buy more, Breath of the Wild is what, 8-year-old, 10-year-old game at the house. Well, 10 might be a stretch. When did Breath of the Wild come out on?
Launch day, 2017.
2017. So it's
March.
It's a 8-year-old game at this point. And truth be told, like it's going to look nicer. Like I've watched and heard reports of like it feels much nicer, it looks much nicer. Like obviously it'll be a pun intended breath of fresh air for that title, but it's still the original Breath of the Wild. I'm just saying, like, especially if it's the old chip with, an upgrade, it does not hurt Nintendo to launch it slightly cheaper, even in the range of like $49.99. Like, I'm not saying it needs to be $20. I'm saying like, make it slightly cheaper so a lot of people, will feel more inclined to actually buy on the front end, not feel like, Nintendo is scamming them, because at the end of the day, we can value the software. And I think obviously Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom deserve their price tags kinda. But the average consumer doesn't really care about that, because they have to be concerned about, okay, well, if I'm going to spend all this money on a luxury item, what am I going to get? What's actually worth getting? That sort of thing. Again, it's not that big of a deal. We'll see what people buy on launch day. I probably will be very wrong, and a lot of people will buy up both of those titles, the Switch 2 versions. But I just think that was just an easy thing with those types of titles to like, especially those two in particular, because they're not adding anything else. And particularly with Breath of the Wild, they don't include the DLC. At least with like Super Mario Party Jamboree and Kirby of the Forgotten Land, there's actually new content. And those are $10 more expensive. So that makes me believe there won't be any new content for those Zelda versions.
Well, I guess technically this is not a good defense for Zelda games, but they did add that companion app with the voice GPS and all that.
I mean, I guess, but
I find completely useless. But
I wouldn't say it's totally useless.
I guess it's for the casual gamer.
Yeah, I mean, the Korok search is kind of painful. So I mean,
share your design or creations with some QR code. Maybe.
Oh, is that for Tears of the Kingdom? Yeah. I mean, that's not totally useless, but again, that's something that's not even in the title.
But really?
Yeah.
We were all waiting for a DLC.
No, man, get this
for like 2 years.
Companion app for your Tears of the Kingdom. No, it's insane. Either way, that's on that point. I agree with you as far as like, trust me, I get it. And if I'm Nintendo and I feel like I can charge people that much, I'm going to charge people that much. Like, but in my mind, I'm thinking it would be a smarter move to make those more competitively priced, especially if they're reusing carts. That's just, from a manufacturing standpoint, from a sales standpoint, you already have that stuff out in the wild. You already have plants making these carts. That's just easy money in my opinion. But we'll see in 16 days.
No. You know what's really dumb? The paid tech demo.
Yes, that tech demo. I kind of forgotten about that. I'm glad you reminded me, and hopefully I forget again. Why did Nintendo feel like it was a good idea to make a tech demo and then charge? Like, I forget, how much are they charging for that tech demo?
But they really just value their whatever they output, their software. It's $10.
$10. But like, it's not like Nintendo has never made. I think back actually to like the 3DS, right? And when you boot up the 3DS for the first time, you have a wide range of different applications. Now, it's not a tutorial game tech demo guide like this is, but like, it's a bunch of different applications that you can utilize for free. It's not included in the price. Like, these are not priced for games, but they kind of get you adjusted to the system. Like, there was the Face Raiders game that utilized the 3DS's camera. And is it virtual? It's not virtual reality. What's the other reality? Augmented reality.
AR.
Yeah, utilizes augmented reality and lets you play a little fun game, so you get used to those components of the system as well as the gyro functionality of the system as well. Like, was it a notepad? No, there's like a music player. There are some guides and stuff like that. There was there's some others. There's a bunch of stuff I can't think of off the top of my head. But the point being, like, even like the Wii U or the Wii, they had different applications that feel similar to this.
Yeah, but those don't really show off the hardware. They were just apps.
Kinda.
Really.
I mean, the strongest one I can make the argument for is the
3DS still had the 3D tracking thing. Yeah.
This one,
but the Wii itself did not have something like that included. That wasn't Wii Sports, and I think the internet knows by now that Reggie Fils-Aimé was the one that pushed for the Wii Sport to be bundled.
Bless Reggie
for free with the Wii launch.
Bless the Reginator. Yeah. That smartest move. It's such a smart move. But yeah, I mean, you're right in that sense, obviously. Which again, Wii Sports would later be a purchasable title. And to my point of what I was talking about with Zelda, when they released Wii Sports later as a title to be purchased, it was priced cheaply. Because again, it had already been out for so long.
Well, because it was. Well, it's also because it was for free. They just literally gave it away.
Yeah, but also, again, it was an older title.
They didn't give Breath of the Wild away.
I guess. But it's still a launch title for the Wii. Well, for the Switch and a Wii U title. Breath of the Wild specifically. Like, come on, Nintendo. I'm just saying. But no, this tech guide, or this tech demo being $10, it just feels so anti-consumer. Again, a lot of these decisions that they've been making just feel so anti-consumer. Like, again, this should have just been like a packaged thing with the Switch. Or, I don't know, if you really just have to charge for it, like anywhere in the range between $2 to $5. Like $10? Like again, I'm not hurting to pay $10, but I would not buy this for $10. Thank you. I can figure out the Switch myself.
No, I probably would.
You're gonna.
I probably would.
There really has to be some really cool stuff. And to be fair, like I'm not saying what they've done with it or what I've seen is not cool. Like obviously it's not just a guide. There's a whole bunch of like really just cool ways that they're trying to showcase a lot of the new features of the Switch 2 alongside little mini games and things of that nature. So obviously this is a, you know, a very well designed piece of software, or it should be. Obviously we don't have it yet. I just feel like it should be either slightly cheaper or just free. And, you know, maybe, okay, here's the thing. Maybe later down the line, you know, no, I'm going to rephrase this point. Sorry, my brain's all over the place. If all of the things, as far as the pricing and some of the, you know, the other components of the Switch 2's information that we've been learning, if it didn't feel so anti-consumer, like all of it, if it didn't all feel so expensive, then it may not be that big of a deal, right? Like in general, $10 for that, if I'm just being completely honest, is not a huge deal. What I think it would just make more sense to be either a free or a slightly cheaper application, yes. Do I think it's not worth $10? Not necessarily. Again, I don't fully know what it comprises, but like I'm sure it's worth its $10. But that's another $10 on all of the different money, all of the money that you have to invest into this Wii U, all of the different peripherals, all of, you know, the console itself, the $70 games, the all of that stuff. It just, you very quickly start to add all that stuff up and you start to get into like the $1,000 territory. And I think the biggest thing with a lot of people with this and Nintendo is specifically Nintendo kind of always put themselves in a price range that was the more affordable option for consumers when it came to gaming. I'm not even going to get into like the nostalgia or the, you know, the fun factor that, you know, people attach to Nintendo. But I think even just from like a consumer standpoint of like, I only have so much money, what can I buy? Like Nintendo has always been a lot more consumer friendly or pocket friendly with their consoles. And especially like their handhelds, right? And so to see them like have the console be $450, have games that are $70, do I necessarily think like some of this stuff is incorrectly priced? No, because obviously game development is getting a lot more expensive. What is actually in the Switch 2, it's kind of a beast of a console itself. So, and honestly, I think actually the Switch 2 itself is priced pretty fairly, but again, just the overall cost of entry for this system is so much higher than, you know, the previous systems that Nintendo has released. I think it really just, one, it shocks people too. Again, not to keep harping on it, but we're in a rougher economic state, and it's kind of like, yeah, y'all are a bunch of cheapos charging us $10 for this tech guide. I don't know.
They are giving everybody a 1 year of online for to try out the game chat services.
That is true. But that's the,
you know.
Oh, go ahead.
No, I don't like it.
So you don't.
I don't like.
You don't like the service. Yeah. What about it you don't like?
Because if you don't have that subscription, the C button is useless.
Yeah. It is disrespectful to the N64. That's the only thing I can think about. Is like you put this pseudo useless button that's attached to a service that people may not even use. I think it's. Here's the thing with the game chat thing. I think overall it's pretty cool to a certain degree that Nintendo kind of has made their own Discord pretty much. And as Discord itself slowly falters because of its own anti-consumer practices that are probably going to be coming soon. Public. Yep.
And the CEO stepped down. Blizzard employee came back to take over.
Yep. So what better way to destroy a software than by getting somebody from Activision to run your thing? That's it's beautiful. But getting away from Discord, I think it's a cool idea, to be honest. Like I like the little peripherals that we've seen with it, the camera, specifically the Piranha,
No, not that
the Piranha
camera.
plant.
It's a $50 camera. It's
Well, not
crazy.
that one, but the Piranha plant one, that from Hori that you can actually directly attach into the USB-C port on the top. Now it's a 480p
Okay.
camera, but again, like it's one kind of built for the purpose of like if you're playing in handheld. And I think some of that stuff is cool because again, that
It's $60. It costs more than the Switch
is it
one,
60. Is it 60?
according to Best
Ooh.
Buy.
Hold on.
No, dude, it's not even. It's 480p.
It is 480p. Jeez, people are scalping because they've got these up for like $94 on eBay.
If it just works with any camera, you can get cheaper ones and just plug it in
That
the
is
top.
probably true.
If it's just USB-C.
But it's supposed to be cute. That's the point. Yeah, at 50, you're kind of stretching a lot. But obviously, it's the fun factor of the Nintendo stuff. Yeah, it's a $60 camera, which is kind of insane. But for 480p, but oof. Getting back to game chat. It's a cool service. I think if you stay within the Nintendo sort of ecosystem, I think there's a lot of practical use for it. Again, I think it's Nintendo again taking more steps into the modern age and kind of doing some of the similar things that other, competitors are doing. Do I think it's something to be excited about or just fully necessary? Not necessarily, but again, I don't think I'm the target audience for that anyways. So, and plus this is the common argument against game chat. You can just use Discord. You can just call somebody. Like you can use alternative methods to kind of do similar things. Now, obviously, the integrated features like having the your face in the game, or even like with Mario Party Jamboree, where like you'll have the full like outline of you in the game and like is tracking your motions and stuff like that. Stuff like that is pretty cool. Like if they use more of that with the camera functionality and stuff like that. But that's not even game chat per se. That's more so like utilizing camera functionality separately. So specifically to game chat, it's kind of unnecessary. But again, I think for like the kids playing in their friend groups, or like again, if you stay within the Nintendo ecosystem, it's a pretty cool feature. Now we will see how much that cost, I'm sure soon, and how much it will cost on top of your already existing Nintendo Online subscription, which again, more money that you have to pay. I think I also saw with Game Chat there was a lot of people recently freaking out because Nintendo updated the language with the more recent updates to the Switch, which pretty much boiled down to like we reserve the right to have access to your recordings and can use your recordings at any point, or not use them per se, but like we have access to your recordings. And I think that's kind of a non-factor. I think that's just the typical like, legalese to cover them in case they ever need to, be covered. And I don't think that's a case of Nintendo spying on people, but we'll see. We'll see down the line. But yeah, I feel like honestly we've touched on a lot of the Switch 2 stuff. The only other thing that I would touch on, we haven't even talked about the specs. I don't think there's any need to, before I even talk about my last piece. The specs, I'm not gonna act like I just from a developer standpoint, I know how great this is or not. But again, I think looking at the specs, it puts it in the range of like a mid-tier PS4. And that's pretty cool to me. These games are going to run great. Again, this would lead into my next point, but like the fact that we're getting Cyberpunk fully on Switch and just looking at it from what reviewers have gotten access to and sort of how Project City Red, that's their name, right? Project City Red? CD Red?
CD Project Red.
CD. Yeah, I'll get it right someday. Just looking at how they've been gassing the port up, like this system's gonna be really good. Like it's as far as like
I mean, people have tested simulations of what it would be similar to on PC, and it's about a RTX 2060,
which is not bad
performance. Well, yeah, well,
I mean, obviously, it was never gonna be the most top of the line, right? I guess what if you can speak on this, but like in comparison to like what's Steam's portable. Name escapes me.
Steam Deck.
Yeah, like does it this either competes or is better than the Steam Deck? I believe. Now, obviously, they're kind of two different things. They're the same thing, but they're kind of different in what they do and what they are. But I don't know. I think like again, at the very
The Steam Deck falls just below a base PlayStation 4.
which this system, at least looking at the specs and from what I've read, is kind of in between a PS4 and a PS4 Pro. So, and people, at least the folks, who are all in on Steam or, love that system, stuff ran relatively fine. I did see kind of, a lot of people talking about compatibility issues, but that seemed more so like, I feel like that was less tech related and more like, or hardware related, excuse me, and more like just development or like compatibility with the system. But the things that ran well for the Steam Deck.
I mean, the Steam Deck's running at 720p and running off AMD. Well, it's an all-in-one chip and GPU. But
yeah, I don't know. I'm excited for just the games to run a lot better, for that issue of like developers not having the power they need to make competent games on the Switch. I feel like Switch 2 will absolutely not run into the same issue. Like obviously, again, it was never going to be the most powerful system, and none of these systems are ever going to compare to just playing anything on PC. Like PC will always be the place to go if you want the best hardware.
I mean, it'll be competitive now for some competitive titles like Rocket League.
Absolutely.
With a 120 hertz display, maybe shooters. Now that it has the power, you can even use the controllers as a mouse.
We didn't talk about mouse controls, but yeah, mouse controls is also a very neat new addition to the system that I feel like a lot of people are not downplaying a little bit. Like not necessarily saying anything negative, but they don't seem excited about it. And I feel like, the mouse control in itself is just, again, more Nintendo charm, but it's going to be like a huge kind of cool feature. One of those like unique Nintendo features. Unlike previous ones, it'll actually see a lot of use by developers for different titles, right? Like, a lot of the previous Nintendo systems gimmicks, not very useful, or maybe useful, but a lot of developers didn't capitalize on it except out of like a few titles from Nintendo themselves. I feel like the mouse control will really see a lot of use. And frankly, if nobody else is excited about it, I love janky stuff like that wheelchair basketball game.
Oh no.
It looks fun to me, man. I'm super excited for I'm super excited for that game. Just to see it in action. It is pretty gray. I wish it had a little more color. Kind of like ARMS. But yeah, I think the mouse controls would be pretty cool. And yeah, going back to
you and like the 4 other players that played ARMS.
A lot of people played ARMS. Like it didn't blow up Splatoon level, but I wouldn't undersell ARMS reach. ARMS was it was a really competently made game. I think it didn't attach with the public like Splatoon did. And arguably I feel that way because, it doesn't have the same, it has more of the appeal of a fighting game than it does of like a team shooter. And team shooters are always much easier for more people to get into and to gravitate to than something like ARMS. I would love for them to follow up on ARMS because I really feel like they have something very good there. Like it's a very well made, competent game. But to your point, definitely not on the level of something like Splatoon, which I feel is a comparable title.
I'm surprised they didn't say anything about Smash.
I feel like they're holding that one. They're holding that one for.
I don't think they'll make another one.
Yeah. Well, I think they'll make
They said Ultimate would be the last, right?
I don't think they said Ultimate would be the last. I think it's just kind of this notion of like, where do we go from here, right? Like, this is kind of, it's in the namesake, right? It's Ultimate. Like, everybody's here. I almost feel like maybe they're working out licensing for a Switch 2 edition, which again would make a whole ton of sense.
I mean, do you really need to license it? If it's not going to make a new version it doesn't really need upgrades either.
Yeah, well, those licenses for like
use the original card.
For the third party stuff, I mean. So like obviously all of the third party agreements and contracts and stuff would probably have to be renegotiated, redone or whatever.
I mean, if you're playing the original card, you don't really have to.
Well, yeah, if you're playing the original card, but I mean for like a kind of similar to like the Switch edition or Switch 2 editions of those other titles, right? Like if, what do those contracts look like for them to be
I mean,
able?
what would they even do for a Switch 2 edition?
Yeah, well, for a Switch 2 edition, that's specifically that. Like obviously you can play.
No, like what would Nintendo make for a Switch 2 edition?
Oh, I don't know, like just
other than just high frame rate, but that can just be done just from putting the cart in a Switch 2. It doesn't really need an upgrade pack.
Well, again, let me go back to that list really quickly. Where'd I put it? So, like for instance, Metro Prime 4, the Switch 2 edition upgrade. It's got 4K, higher frame rate. Or you can do 60 or 120 FPS. That's actually all that it's showing. I don't know. For a Switch 2 edition of Smash, arguably you could have maybe another DLC pack. Obviously, again,
for what? What would they add?
The sky's the limit. If we can get Steve and Sora, I mean, they could add new characters.
But he was supposed to be the last one.
For that cycle, yeah. But if there's a Switch 2 edition, and again, even if it was just a 4K, like maybe they just do again the general enhancement. So it's not a Switch 2 edition, but it's just like enhancements on Switch 2.
I mean, it depends how the game engine was made. Because if it's just, it just be dependent on the hardware itself and not need new assets.
Which that's what I was saying of like, well, they could just do the enhancement.
You won't need an upgrade pack.
Yeah,
for that.
they could just do the enhancement for that, right?
I mean, it's not even an enhancement. It's just putting it in the new hardware.
No, but that's what I mean. Like like the Pokemon I was explaining. Like it would just be that enhanced. They would have it on their list of like these games get enhanced because I feel like
enhancements that they handmade or simply because the hardware is more powerful.
Well, I would think it's handmade because from what I understand, obviously
no, that's different. If it's handmade, they're going to charge for it.
Well, from my understanding of how the backwards compatibility is working with Switch 1 and Switch 2, it's not native. Like, I forget the technical term.
It's not emulation, but it's also not native.
Yeah. So, like, I feel like there would be...
It's like on the fly translation.
Which I feel like there would need to be some level. But again, that's above my understanding. So I do feel like there would need to be some sort of, like, work to be done to make those enhancements. But I don't.
No, but like stuff like frame rate, that can be just simply due to the new hardware. Like, a developer doesn't need to touch it to do that.
Could be.
But that really depends on the game engine if it's tied to the frame rate.
That's true. I don't know. Again, they could even just re-release it for the sake of like, we can sell this again for free and nobody's going to say anything. I don't know if they could give it HD. Again, I'm literally looking at going back to Zelda. They have that Switch 2 edition, and all that we know about it outside of that app is HDR and obviously like frame rate improvements and stuff like that. So, and probably like texture improvement and things of that nature. So, who knows?
That's probably because the engine is tied to frame rate, and they do have to modify it.
Could be. We'll see.
But like stuff like what Arceus ran terribly with low frame rates, and maybe Tears of the Kingdom for Switch 1.
Yeah.
Just simply putting that card in the Switch 2 will make it run better without needing any upgrade or downloads or patches.
We'll see. Well, that's a good point. We'll see what Arceus does when we get when Switch 2 comes out. Which also excited for Pokemon Legends ZA. I probably will still get the Switch version.
Nah.
I'm excited about it. I think it'll be good.
Nah.
Did you not enjoy Arceus?
Arceus was interesting because it was the time period and the new mechanics.
But you don't think
now ZA is another modern setting. I loathe the day I see another talking Rotom Pokédex.
I mean, but that's what was in Arceus though, to be fair.
They didn't have talking Rotom Pokédexes.
Yeah, they did. Your phone was a Rotom. Your main phone.
It didn't really talk to you.
It kind of talked to you.
You just checked. It became a magic Arceus phone, but it wasn't floating around as a companion.
I guess.
Making weird quips at you.
I don't know. I kind of agree. I don't like the modern aesthetic of Pokemon. Like I didn't like Scarlet and Violet's, you know, region or aesthetic. It's way more generic to me now. I think Legend ZA is a little better in that regard. Again, I did like Ancient Sinnoh. I thought it was really cool to your point. But I also really
Did you get the DLC for Scarlet Violet?
did I get the DLC? I don't remember.
Some festival.
What was the DLC? Oh, was it the it was the turtle, right? I can't even think of the name.
I don't know.
Gosh,
And then there was the four cornered battle arena thing.
I did not get the DLC. I did not. I just played the base game. And I didn't pay for because while I didn't stand on principle for Scarlet and Violet, and I think those are genuinely great games, I did stand on principle for the DLC. I was just like, this game runs way too bad for me to keep giving them money, and I just, as much as I love Pokemon, I can't. Now, at the very least with ZA, I feel like it's a step in the right direction. I'm hoping that it runs and looks so much better on Switch 2. I'm slightly pessimistic, but I'm still gonna get it. I think I will probably still get the Switch 1 version unless the Switch 2 version is all on cart. It's not a game key card. Which I think it'll probably be a game. It'll be a full on cart game. But
Nah.
I liked
Storage will be expensive.
yes, that's the
Why would they're not gonna pay for storage?
well, they've said that most of Nintendo's titles. So you're seeing a lot of the third party titles are going to game key cards. And just in case nobody knows what the key card situation is, key cards are essentially just cartridges purely with a license on them. So it's one step above like physical copies with download codes. These are technically resellable products. And so when you put the cartridge into the system, it triggers the license and then you can download the full game. But you have to have the game key card in the console in order to be able to play the game. So to a degree, it's much better than what we had simply because, like, again, this is a resellable item that, you know, if you want to trade a game or you want to resell your game, you can do so with it. And you'll lose access to it once you lose access to that license. It's still the issue of it's not the full game on the cart. And kind of what you're getting at, one issue of that is that since we're now using express micro SD cards, they're super expensive going back to that price for the relative amount of space that you get. And obviously, as these games get better and better and bigger or, you know, more functional on Switch, there's a lot more space that they take up. And so you have a lot less space to actually download games. So arguably, I feel like physical titles have much more of a place in this upcoming era, just simply due to the fact of, you know, how bulky or how bloated modern games are. Because devs don't really do a good job. Not every dev, but I feel like devs don't do a great job compressing their data. And so you're going to see a lot of bloat on your titles. And game key cards don't help with that. Not to mention, again, you're not really buying the full game on the cartridge. You're buying a license to that game, which is already a whole other conversation. But a lot of third parties are going the game key card route. I think the biggest blow for me on the after the launch trailer or whatever for the Switch 2, I was so excited that Street Fighter 6 was coming to Switch 2. Like so excited. Both of my favorite things, Nintendo and Street Fighter, you know, I can't speak. Coming together. They're coming together. Again, fully like the modern Street Fighter. And Capcom was like, it's a game key card. I'm not buying it again on Switch 2. Like if it was like a full retail release, I would have bought it again. But I will happily keep my PS4 copy. I don't need it on Switch. There's no reason to get it on Switch. Again, it's just bloating up either my SD card or I'm getting a game key card, which again is a useless product. And eventually in the future, when Nintendo's servers and stuff go down, that's just a useless chip. At the very least with Switch titles, I'm not going to explicitly say how. You can dump those titles off the cartridge. There will be emulators available in the future. You could always, until your system dies, you can play them on that system without having to connect to a server or whatever. You may not have the latest patch or whatever, but for the most part, most of them are at least playable. Yeah, the game key cards, I think it's a good idea, but I think in the grand scheme of all of the different things going against Switch, it's just really not great. And I feel like part of this is Nintendo's fault as well. Well, maybe it's their fault, maybe it's not their fault. Again, we have so little information right now. A lot of this is just hearsay. But I think the base storage amount for Nintendo Switch 2 cartridges are 64 gigabytes. So unlike the original Switches, which did have a variable and were much smaller and memory size, base or lowest is 64. And so a lot of developers just seem to be opting to go the game keycard route. I don't know if that's due to pricing or other factors, but
I mean, why pay for storage on a card when you just make the customer download it?
I mean, that's fair, right? Again, the one thing I saw that was very funny is like Bravely Default. Like it's just an HD remaster of a 3DS game, and it's 8 gigabytes, I believe. And I mean, people are like, why is this not on a cartridge? And then later we find out the news that, baseline is 64. And to a certain degree, I get that, right? Like if there's not an available option that's cost effective to actually put the full game on a cart, if you're going to have a physical version, game key card is the way to go, right? Or just do a download code. But like Street Fighter, I feel like is a title. What's really the excuse there? Like Capcom was pulling that in the Switch era of like making games, you have to download or like putting codes in boxes. For instance, the Mega Man Legacy collection. We're talking SNES games, and maybe into like the PS2 era or whatever. The Legacy Collection 1 was on the cart, and then Legacy Collection 2 you had to download. They did this for various titles, and it was pretty bad in Europe from what I saw. I believe they rarely had full game on cart releases over in Europe. But point being, I think with some of these, it's kind of insane that they're not just doing full cart versions. I think partly some of this has to do with what Nintendo is doing. Base Daemon X Machina Titanic Scion is going to be full on cart. Absolutely incredible. Yakuza 0 is going to be a game key card. Absolutely disappointing, but it's okay. There's a whole conversation that could be had for the game key card. But I feel like what were we talking about before I started on that part? I feel like you made a point, and that's what started me on that piece.
Yeah, why pay for all that storage?
Yeah, the storage of like the Express. I feel like we were on something else, but regardless, I think the moral of the story with the Switch 2, to kind of tie it all together, I feel like this would have been one of the hypest, most incredible Nintendo launches, maybe one of the greatest gaming launches in history. The launch titles for the Switch are amazing. The system itself is amazing. I feel like everything would have worked out if the price was right and there weren't other complications, I can be the most hardcore, like I need physical media person ever, but obviously we're moving into a different era where digital, just truth be told, it's much easier, much more, it's more smart to have digital titles because again, you can just store them digitally. You don't have to worry about the physical stuff that you have to transfer with you or, accumulates. Like there's a lot of merit to going digital. And so I don't think that would have been as big of a deal. That's more of my main sticking point for me personally. But in the grand scheme, I know a lot of people buy their stuff digitally. But again, all of this stuff is so expensive cumulatively from the peripherals to, the games and arguably the system. It caused a lot of controversy. I feel like, I don't think I sent you the picture. I'll send you the picture later. But I feel like there's a lot of people moaning who are still going to buy the system. And I mean, if you really want to send a company a message, the best thing you can do is not buy. And I'm not going to buy at launch. I'll eventually get one. Again, there's incentive for me. I love Nintendo first and foremost. Again, it will support my entire back catalog, at least for the most part, excuse me. Um, and there will be some first party titles that I'll want to try out in the future. But I'm in no rush to go out and get one on launch. I'm in no rush to get one in the first year. I'll see what the situation looks like. And if I feel like I need to get one, I will. I'm actually more focused right now on getting late life Switch titles just because I feel like the Switch is kind of in like that PS2 space of like you're going to see a lot of titles that kind of launch at the tail end that will become super rare later on. And it's not for the purpose of collecting. It's more so like I feel like once you get to this stage in the life of a console, you really get a lot of the gem titles that a lot of people miss out on. They have, short print runs. And thankfully, since Switch 2 will be backwards compatible, I feel like there will be a lot more support for that, unlike a PS2 to PS3 situation where there was backwards compatibility, but it was such a large leap. It was kind of a different sort of, transition. But like my PSA is like, if you see stuff on Switch, I would focus on that. And then if you really want to hop into Switch 2, focus on that later. Like a good example is the Lunar Collection, which Gung Ho put out, which didn't have pre-orders. They just kind of shadow dropped. Told everyone that, hey, well, we're not going to put this up for pre-order, but there'll be enough copies available. Shadow dropped it, Amazon exclusive in North America, sold out, unavailable, going on the third party for almost $100. And this was recently. This was like 2 months ago, I believe. So all that to say, like, I would say if you love Switch, if you love Nintendo, focus on the Nintendo stuff right now. Maybe wait on Switch 2 or get a Switch 2 and enjoy it. And, I'll hop in later. I don't know about you. I know you said you're kind of looking from the FOMO perspective, but, I know you won't be stressed either way if you get one or not. So, yeah. Is there anything else you want?
Go ahead. No new titles are coming out that I'm really interested in. Like, it is no new Mario title platformer, like Odyssey or
Donkey
Galaxy.
Kong doesn't do it for you, and that's genuinely like I feel like Donkey Kong Bonanza is the Mario Odyssey title for it. It looks really good. I love Donkey Kong, like just as a character. It looks really good to me, but I understand if that's not like you're kind of like that's not it. Genuinely, to me, the titles that they're releasing, I feel like okay, this is really cool. Like just Nintendo first party alone, Mario Kart World. I'm not as like I love Mario Kart, but I do love Mario Kart. It looks pretty fun. Obviously, like I said, I think Bonanza would be my top title from the launch titles from Nintendo. Besides Drag X Drive, that's the name of it. The wheelchair basketball. Metro Prime 4 obviously looks amazing. I'm surprised that's not one you're interested in potentially. And then Legend ZA. I don't think I followed up on the ZA point, but like I think the new mechanics look dope. I like what I saw of how they built off of Arceus. So I'm hoping, I think it's gonna be a really good game, personally. But I can understand if you're kind of like, I don't like this aesthetic. I don't need a Rotom phone anymore. But I don't know. And I like the third party support that Nintendo's getting as well. There's a lot of cool stuff coming out, particularly for our weebiness. Raito remastered The Mystery of the Soulless Army. That's cool that's finally coming out. The No Sleep for Kaname Date, another AI, the Somnium Files games, is incredible. Super excited for that. I still need to play the sequel. I never got around to the sequel, but I need to do that. And then yes, we'll probably finally get Silk Song. So
I know a friend of mine is definitely excited for Deltarune chapters 3 and 4.
Yeah. And has Switch 2 exclusive mechanics.
Wait, what?
Yeah, it's gonna have Switch 2. So each console, I believe, will have specific like its mechanics or functionality with the system, but Switch 2's will be unique because it will support mouse support, and that'll be across all parts. So part 1 through 4. Toby Fox announced for Deltarune.
Interesting.
Yep. So, and relatively cheap title. It'll be $24.99, and unlike Nintendo's offering, if you already own Deltarune's part 1 and 2 on Switch, it's a free upgrade on Switch 2. if you've already bought it. So I think a lot of people are probably definitely going to hop in on that title at launch, and it launches the 5th. So yeah, it's a launch day title. So that's pretty cool. But yeah. Okay, yeah, I thought I wasn't crazy. When I saw Hogwarts Legacy, they were pushing it like it was a new game, and I was like, I'm pretty sure this is old. It is an older title. It just will have a Switch 2 upgrade for $10. So, the Rune Factory game too looks pretty cool, but I don't know if that's your cup of tea. There's a lot of stuff on here for me personally that looks pretty cool, but I can understand if you have specific, titles that you're looking for out of a Nintendo machine. More so, whatever. But yeah, any closing thoughts? We've been at it for a while for Switch.
I want games that the definitive experience would be on that console. Remember, Okami sequel.
That is true. They did announce that.
It was announced.
Yeah. But
Okami, I think, plays best on the Switch.
Is it the Clover team? I guess I could just look that up.
I don't know.
Okami sequel. Funnily enough, out of a title that you think I would have played at this point, I have not played Okami yet. I started it on Wii years ago. Never finished it. Got the Wii Switch version. Haven't started it yet. I might make that my next title. I'm actually playing through Red Dead Redemption and Tokyo Xanadu. I know, a crazy combination. But I might make that my next title now that you've reminded me about it. But I know how great Okami is. I enjoyed it on Wii for what I did play.
It definitely plays better handheld on Switch because, the drawing aspect.
It is Clover's. So we weren't planning on talking about this, but I'll talk about this for a second to kind of segue. Since we brought up Okami, it will be directed by Hideki Kamiya, and by the new Clover's Inc., which is the resurgence of a sub-dev team of Capcom's back in the day that created a lot of great titles. This group essentially disbanded and created Platinum, which it seems now that Platinum is in very dire straits. A lot of their core members are leaving, which is very sad to see. It's kind of an end of an era because, again, you had these great developers who made a lot of the unique titles kind of in the PS2 GameCube era at Clover, kind of your Beautiful Joes and all of that. Then they left, formed Platinum, and Platinum always kind of struggled. I feel like they were always industry celebrated, but never had the sales to back up that celebration. Like they're kind of critical darlings or cult classic.
Really? Nier Automata was Platinum.
Kinda, but that was more of an outlier, and that wasn't like a unique Platinum title. That was kind of I feel that one was more an oddity, if I can be honest, because again, Nier itself was very niche as well from Square Enix until that game. I feel like a lot of love for that series overall only came after the success of mashing, Toyotaro. It is Toyotaro, right? Or am I confusing these developers?
Yoko
Taro. Toyotaro, different. You're right. Yoko Taro, and the action gameplay of Platinum. I think that was a 1 in a million type of successful collaboration. Because think about Platinum's catalog. You have Bayonetta, you have Vanquish, The Wonderful 101. They made a few licensed titles, like they made a Legend of the Korra title at one point. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance. I'm trying to see. Just off the top of my head, I'm trying to think of titles. There was Anarchy Reigns. Again, I feel like a lot of stuff that Platinum did by themselves, critically acclaimed, lauded, did not sell a lot. In fact, I think it was more so when they attached themselves to third parties outside of licensed titles, where they truly shined or made their money. So again, like your Nier Automata, your Metal Gear Rising, Revengeance, those sort of titles. And I think they had a lot of mishaps too. There was that Dragon game for Xbox that was supposed to be that Xbox title years ago, and that fell through. There was supposed to be a trinity of like tokusatsu games held by Hideki Kamiya. Wonderful 101 was one of those. There was supposed to be like a Ultraman style type game that never came out. I was super excited for that, and unfortunately that fell through the cracks. And personally, I'm a huge fan. The other one that was a big hit for them was the Nintendo title. What was it called? It's the one where you kind of control, like you had a stand and you controlled the stand, and it was a police game. What was that game called?
What?
Hold on. It'll make sense when it was Astral Chain, I think that's what it's called.
Oh.
I haven't found it yet, but I believe it's Astral Chain. Yes, it's Astral Chain. And that one was pretty successful. I always forget that they also developed Star Fox Zero, which I like personally, but I understand if that's not, anyone's cup of tea. Anyways, point being, Platinum has always been lauded, but never really made the return that I feel like they deserved or that other people kind of hyped them up to get. And it seems like there's been a disconnect between management and the talent, and a lot of the talent has left. Finally getting back to it, it seems like Clover's, it's now called Clovers with an S instead of Clover. And it seems like that will be, again, another resurgence of this group of these legendary developers to, make these unique titles. And I'm excited to see what they do. I think it's very cool that they're going back to work for Capcom in order to develop this Okami sequel. And I'm very excited to see that. Speaking of, there's also the Onimusha reboot that'll be coming out as well. So I think that will be pretty cool as well. And I are they involved in the Kuninotsugami Path of the Goddess? I think so, maybe. But there's some cool stuff coming out of Capcom into this new generation. I feel like Capcom's been firing on all cylinders, barring their core players kind of complaining about Street Fighter 6 and obviously the myriad of issues that Monster Hunter. What's the subtitle for that one? I forget. Well, yeah, Wilds that had, but Capcom's been on fire. I'm super excited to pop in. I don't have it just yet, but it will be coming soon. The Capcom Fighting Collection 2. I've been wanting that for years. For years. It's almost here in my hands. That's a legendary compilation of games, and I'm just happy to kind of see where Capcom is moving with their titles. Other people may disagree, but I feel like they're doing great things. But speaking of Capcom, segue. I'm perfect at these. You can't talk about Capcom without the other giants, Sega, Square Enix, and Konami. But what are we talking about with Konami? We're talking about...
Is it Yu-Gi-Oh?
Yes, we are talking about Yu-Gi-Oh! And really no specific thing on Yu-Gi-Oh! More so just that recently I've had a resurgence personally into Yu-Gi-Oh! Both in watching the anime and preparing myself to play the actual TCG. And just figured we could talk about it for a little bit. It's crazy to kind of think of my experience with Yu-Gi-Oh! Because I think like a lot of people my age was introduced to the anime, also the manga. Didn't really take the card game seriously. It was more of just a fad of the time where you just bought the cards and they were cool and you collected them or whatever. But obviously the TCG has been doing its thing in the background, for years at this point. And to just see how kind of, I wouldn't say the game is complex. It is complex, but sure, I feel like complex. Just see how complex the game has gotten, but more so unique and fast paced it is. It's kind of insane to see. Yeah. Now I hopped straight into the physical card game because again, I hate myself. I could have just hopped on Master Duel, but I was like, no, I'm gonna look and see what's up with the physical card game. Maybe try to go find a card shop soon to get some sets in. But it's really cool to finally dip my toe in, finally learn how links work. I kind of understand the intent now. I know that they were made specifically to neuter pendulum summons, and just seeing how busted pendulums were supposed to be. I feel like they never really reached, just looking at it from a historical perspective, pendulums never really reached their full bustedness because people hated it so much. So Konami kind of backtracked pretty quickly, although there were periods where obviously pendulums had really good decks. But learning all of those different mechanics, learning the new archetypes that sprung up, I didn't realize that technically the TCG has specific archetypes that are not in the OCG. And just for those who don't know, Yu-Gi-Oh is split into different competitive scenes. So the OCG is the original card game. It's what's played in Japan and other Asian countries, and it has its own ban list or its own limited list. And then the TCG is the trading card game, and that's what's played in the States and I believe Europe, and it has its own ban list and cards or whatever. Um, and yeah, I didn't realize there were archetypes exclusive to the TCG developed for for itself. I don't know if you're familiar with Max C, but
Yeah.
Max C, which is a pivotal card for all decks, currently
Uh-huh.
banned in the TCG, but is allowed, I believe, in the OCG and obviously in Master Duel. Master Duel has its
Mm?
own ban list. That's a
Oh, yeah.
TCG. It was a TCG exclusive card for a bit. I thought that was pretty interesting. This extremely busted. I wouldn't even call it busted. Learning the history of the Max C, it was put out to do a specific thing in its time era or its era, and it wasn't that great in that era. But obviously, with power creep and how special summoning has become increasingly just what you have to do in order to play the game, it became a pivotal card. Like you are playing Max C, and you're probably playing at least two copies. Um, Another archetype that I thought was pretty cool, not necessarily a great archetype, but is a cool one, is the Libromancer archetype. And its whole thing is ritual summoning. But I really like the art. That was my main thing. I like the art, and I also like that it kind of targets a summoning archetype that I feel like is a little shunned. I really feel like ritual monsters probably should have been extra deck monsters, but they're not. So it is what it is. But I like the way that Libromancer kind of works to bring out those ritual monsters and can work as an engine for other decks like Dogmatica to do some pretty cool stuff. But yeah, I mean, tell me a little bit about your experience with Yu-Gi-Oh. I kind of just went into mine and kind of just went into the game, but like, what's your history? Why do you like it? That sort of thing.
I mean, I think like most people started out with the original anime, season 1, not season 0, for in English, the 4 Kids dubs. Then watched most of GX. Didn't really get into 5Ds. Definitely did not watch Sexel since I was kind of out of it at that time. Only think it was around when season 2 or 3 of Arc V was airing. I started to pick it up, but then the round after that, Master Duel released. I got into that for a little bit, and I think since this past October, November, Twitch has been running reruns of every series of the dubs nonstop. So most of my side monitor has just been every Yu-Gi-Oh all the time.
YouTube too, by the
Just
way. So
running
it's on
in the
both
background.
YouTube and Twitch. Oh, disappeared.
Well, I will.
Oh no, I thought you. Okay, never mind. Sorry, I thought you went silent. You can continue.
You did say Konami backtracked on Pendulum real fast, but Master Rules 4 had a 3-year gap since they introduced Pendulum. From 3 to 4 was 3 years, so Pendulum at the time was pretty busted.
I mean, yeah, from what I saw, and obviously we talked about it a little bit. Obviously prior to changing to the new format, pendulums were not a part of the spell and trap zone. They had their own sections, which means realistically you could summon up to 5 monsters in a turn if that was something that you could do with your deck. And obviously there were ways to play around that. Again, I was not playing in that era. I think similarly, I was in the same sort of state as you. I didn't even get back into Yu-Gi-Oh for the anime. I've just literally gotten back into the game and then started watching some of the series retroactively. But now I feel like the anime plays.
But you saw episode 1 of Arc V, bro?
Oh yeah, I've watched about 20 episodes now of Arc V. It's actually pretty good. But
he MC literally just pulls Pendulum out of nowhere.
Pulls it out of nowhere. to avenge his father, which is the most anime thing I've ever seen. And pendulums were born. Speaking of Arc V, I kind of like the whole, I guess, plot of like, although I don't know how I feel about how it, potentially reworks like the continuity of Yu-Gi-Oh. Again, I've not watched it fully through, so obviously I don't know all the details. I'm only 20 episodes into a season of like 160, 80 episodes or whatever it is. But I somewhat like the fact that it's building up to this thing of there's these separate worlds or universes or realities or whatever. And in those reality universe worlds, there's the specific summoning mechanic, and the duelists who come from that world are, they're representatives of that style. So, for instance, you have the fusion dimension, or I guess that's what they're called, the fusion dimension. You have the synchro dimension. You have the XZ's dimension, and then obviously, I would assume Yuya's is the pendulum. I don't know.
They are just the standard.
They're standard.
Dimension.
Okay, so they're not a unique dimension. But I like that. It's kind of funny in a way of like, I'm a fusion duelist, and like this is my lifeblood. With Sora, obviously showing signs of being from the fusion dimension. And then just I don't know. I like the angstiness of Yu-Gi-Oh, with the understanding of these are just people fighting each other essentially through a card game. Like, it's kind of hilarious, but also like I like the drama. I get sucked into it. I also think
I don't know if it was explained in that so far in the show, but I think the new projection system makes them physical monsters.
Yeah, you're talking about action dueling.
Yeah, but the monsters are solid also.
I believe so. They kind of state so, because the whole thing is like, they can actually get hurt, or I think, yeah, they do kind of allude to that because there's I assume a different dimension Yuya that pops up. I don't know the character's name yet, and he's interacting with Yuzu, and she makes a comment because that alternate dimension Yuya is like dueling the little arrogant guy, I forget his name, or the little nepotism character, and she's like, how are they taking damage, or how did I feel wind when there's no action duel going on or no projection going on? So still a lot to figure out, still a lot to learn. I do find it kind of funny on that point too of like Sora was trying to teach Yuzu like fusion summoning, and she's doing the whole chant before she fusion summons her cards, and she's like, why doesn't it work? And Sora has to be like, your fusion cards go in your extra deck, and I'm like, is it really that hard? Like, are they that stupid? Like I understand the concept of like these are like almost like these martial art techniques. Like that's what they want you to believe. They want you to suspend your belief of like, these summoning techniques are like these like deeply complicated things that you have to learn. But I mean, if we're really talking about like fusion summoning, synchro summoning, and XZ summoning, fusion summoning, well, first of all of those go in the extra deck first and foremost. Fusion summoning, at its simplest, you need polymerization, unless you're doing like some form of contact fusion. Synchros, that one's slightly more complicated, but not as much. You need one tuner card, and then you need a monster with the equivalent level to add up to the synchro monster that you're summoning. And then XCs is obviously just looking at the listed requirements. Most of the time, I feel like most XZ's cards are level 4s, stacking them on top of, 2 level 4s or whatever. Anyway, but they just act like it's just like, I've never done this before, I don't get it. It's like, well, if you've seen it one time, like, and y'all are the standard dimension now that you told me that, so like, I don't understand if there was like some haze of magic.
Yeah, what did they do before Pendulum? Is it just
they were just playing Yu-Gi-Oh, man.
OG?
They were playing
Boomer mode.
Yeah, they were playing beatdown decks with 3 copies of La Jin, and they were just, they were just going at it against Celtic Guardian and other cards. Yeah, I don't really. I mean, I get it. Obviously, you're again suspend your disbelief, but I'm just like, come on, it's not that hard. Apparently later on, which don't spoil, but apparently later on, I'll find out maybe at the very end why ritual summoning is not a thing. Again, I feel like a big part of that is because it's not an extra deck summoning method, but I just feel like again it got shafted. And I think ritual summoning is cool. Like I like the card design. I like the concept of it from a dueling mechanic perspective. But I've been enjoying my time with Arc V. I think so. I've watched retroactively V-Rain's Arc 5 and Zexal. I did not do 5Ds yet. I really should just watch 5Ds. I don't know why I'm kind of avoiding it, but I probably should watch it. I think I'll enjoy it a lot. But of the three of those that I watched, Arc V I've definitely enjoyed the most. I like the designs. I kind of like the storyline. None of the characters. I like all of the characters pretty much. V-Rain's was cool. It just feels so edgy, and I always hate like super edgelord protagonists anyways, and I forget the main character's name, but he doesn't like dueling, and unlike season 4 Jaden from GX, like there's his reason is not enough for me. I don't know, just too edgy of a series. Zexal, I've seen a lot of people online hype it up of like, oh, it's really good just when you get to it, and like when you get to the end, and I hate Yuya. I hate Yuya. Like I'm pretty sure it looks like it gets good, but I just cannot sit through that series, man. And I gave it a good try. Like I've probably watched maybe 20, 30 episodes of it. And I mean, he improves, but just so childish, and just it really felt like a full reset. And I feel like he has the unfortunate bit to me is like I feel like XZs are kind of the coolest looking cards of the different archetypes. I really like the black card. They look so sleek. And I'm curious to learn more about the lore of like the numbers. And I do like the whole thing with like I forget the ghost name that, or the astral creature that is with him and stuff. And genuinely, I can see how as they got further along, the storylines got deeper. Yuya grows up. They do less of the like school, like 4-5-year-old style storylines and dueling and stuff like that. But I don't know. It's rough. It's really rough for a while there. Maybe I'll go back and try it, but it's kind of rough. I know your favorite, or at least I assume your favorite season is Arc 5. Really? No. What's your favorite season?
I liked GX overall.
Okay. Have you watched all of it, or have you just watched the dub seasons? Okay, so you haven't seen season 4, which is a shame. We'll never get season 4 dubbed, but I get it. Well, one, obviously it's old, but I get it. So then who's your favorite character then? You gotta have a favorite character. Or at least a favorite group of characters. Not really.
No.
Well, definitely my favorite character out of all the seasons is Joey Wheeler, because I'm just a boomer like that. But Joey's just the type of character archetype that I really vibe with. It sucks that his deck archetype sucks because he doesn't really have one. Like you would say Red Eyes, which Red Eyes apparently is not good currently, just pure Red Eyes. Apparently if you use Primite, excuse me, you can make a good Red Eyes deck, but I think that's like metal Red Eyes. Anyway, Joey's deck is just a bunch of like random cards in the original Yu-Gi-Oh, but my boy holds it down. He should have beat Merrick. That's all I got to say. Joey's the one. But yeah, no, I mean, this was just a brief talk on Yu-Gi-Oh. We actually did a quick speed duel the other day, which again, apologies for being late, but very late. Yeah, speed duel is fun. I actually kind of like it in the sense of it's kind of board game style, if that makes sense. So like, if you don't know Yu-Gi-Oh, you can kind of take one of these boxes, and if you get the GX era boxes, they're much cheaper than like what the original series boxes kind of go for nowadays. But the GX era boxes are relatively cheap. You get a bunch of cards that you can use in the regular TCG if you ever want to transfer over. And like they're pretty quick duels. Now our first one that we did took a while, which was kind of funny. But for the most part, the other ones kind of just, quickly went through. And the interesting thing that I thought after our duels from the speed duels was I feel like Master Duel sort of streamlines a lot of the things that you have to kind of consciously think about if you're playing the card game in real life, which is kind of a duh thing. But to see it in real time, right? Like everything is sort of automated. So all you really have to do in Master Duel is kind of know how your deck plays and just make sure that you're paying attention to how you're interacting.
No, 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 no,
What do you
no.
mean?
In Master Duel, you see the yellow button pop up says activate. You click the button. That's how you play Master Duel.
Okay, maybe you don't read. I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh players do not read, so you click activate. Which again, I think is a good thing because instead of having to focus on all of the different sub mechanics and activations and card text and stuff, at least in Master Duel, like you say, right, like now you can spend more time like strategically pressing activate. And instead of
Yeah.
like ashing. I don't know. I'm not going to try and use a specific.
Ash
Yeah,
Maxi.
you can Ash Maxi or you can affect Valor Karibo. I don't know. Nobody plays standard Karibo, but you get the point of like you're playing more of the game of building your board and then just focusing on the best time to play your hand traps or your general traps or whatever. Apparently, in the newest meta, hand traps are actually not as good as they have been. Which would be good. So that means maybe hopefully infinite impermanence and all the other stuff can go down in price, and then I'm sure they'll get good again, and then now you'll have gotten your cheap hand traps before they go back in price. Maybe Nibiru will always be a good card, or I feel like Nibiru may not always be a good card, but I feel like something like Ash, which I didn't even realize was a tuner. I thought that was kind of crazy. Will always be good. It is a tuner. Yep. See, it's a tuner.
Oh, it's a zombie tuner.
Yep. And I guess Ash is in the same archetype.
It used to be insect. Oh wait. I'm looking at Maxi. I'm dumb.
Well, is Ash in that architect or that archetype of the little ghost girls that kind of work as hand trap? Hold on, let me find them because one is literally named Ghost Girl and Belle, I believe. Evening, Crescent, and Autumn Shower.
I don't think it's nothing in the text that says any specific archetype, but it is zombie tuner.
Okay, so the archetype is Yokai Girl. I don't think it's in the name. It's on the cards. It is a part of that. So yeah, Ash Blossom enjoys spring. Ghost Belle and Haunted Mansion, Ghost Mourner and Moonlight Chill, Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit, Ghost Reaper and Winter Cherries, and Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood. And most of these actually see a decent amount of play. I forget which one's the worst one, but I think it's like Ghost Sister and Spooky Dogwood, I believe. Anyway, long story short, they're all tuners. But apparently they made their appearance in Arc. Oh no, their anime appearances were in Arc V. But they launched first in Cross Souls, which is when did this launch? 2015. I don't know what era that would have been. Okay, no, they were XZ's era. But anyways, but yeah, no, Yu-Gi-Oh's fun. I need to get into Max. I was about to say Maxi. I need to get into Master Duel. I finally just need to grind those charms and play. But I'm hoping in my local area, I find a good sort of local to go to. I think that'll be fun to just kind of play. Just to spoil my archetypes that I'm working on. Libromancer, like I was mentioning earlier, I'm a big hero guy, so I have all the different flavors of hero: evil hero, destiny hero, vision hero. I think Masked is my favorite, and I'm pretty excited for the new support. Masked Hero is getting new support with actual like effect monsters that allow you to get out your masked heroes and other heroes without having to necessarily rely on the Vision Hero engine, which I think is so cool. I would love to make just a pure masked hero deck. What's the other archetype I'm working on? P.U.N.K. P.U.N.K is a cool one. I gravitate. I don't know about you. I know you told me that Metal Monsters or earth metal monsters are is your favorite archetype, but I personally gravitate to archetypes where I really like the art, and Punk has really cool art, and so I was like, okay, yeah, that's one that I'll play. Plus, I can also work it in with Libromancer if I want to make a Punk Libromancer deck. I think that could work as well. Vanquishing Souls is another one, but it's expensive in real life. So I was like, yeah, I'll wait until like it's no longer good, and then I'll buy him. But Vanquishing Souls is it's based on fighting games. So there's literally one of the characters that just looks like Hakumen, which I was like, okay, this is I need this set. But it's based off of fighting games. The way that the mechanics of the cards work is kind of based on tag fighters, which I thought was pretty cool. Yeah, I need the deck to go down in price. Raisin goes for like $13 a pop at the lowest, I believe, or probably higher than that, maybe even $20 a pop. And the other good cards are kind of in that same price range as well. So I'm like, I'm good. I don't have to get that until much later. I mean, is there any other archetype that you like outside of Earth Metal, or is it just kind of that one you stick to?
Well, Earth Machine, I still that's the main deck I use because I think it's funny of absolutely obliterating the opponent's face pretty easily, and it does a little bit of trolling with banish one random extra deck monster and gain its attack and defense. But for other archetypes, I do like Galaxy Eyes, and recently I tried to build a Sky Strikers deck, but during the recent anniversary, but I opened like 30, 40 packs and I didn't get pretty much any of the core cards needed for that. So that one's kind of dead. I do have a Cyber Dragon deck, kind of the brain dead ones that just keep summoning Cyber Dragons.
Well, first of all, I just want to say weeb on the Sky Striker. Of course you try the Sky Striker.
Have you seen the new anniversary content for it? They had a whole
for it. What? That's one of the first anime out of Konami's new exclusive animation studio, the Sky Striker one. I would honestly like to see them do one for Dogmatica, just because I feel like that's super cool. I recently kind of dug into the lore for that set of cards, and how that I didn't realize that all tied in with Tri Brigade and what's the other? Is there other archetype in there? There's another one. It's not Kashtira. Kashtira doesn't play a role in that series. Anyway, the Dogmatica stuff was cool. I'm curious to see if that animation studio is just going to do a bunch of animation or a bunch of anime based off of their card archetypes, or they're going to be branching into other stuff. But it'd be cool to see what they produce. I really like. Did you see the little animation? I think it's the 25th animation short where they compiled a bunch of the different archetypes together in like this sort of sizzle reel, and a thank you to the players sort of thing.
Maybe.
I just recently saw it. I was watching one of the YCS's, one of the major card tournaments, and it was playing during the intermission periods. I'll find it and send it over. But
what you really need to do is build up a Master Duel deck.
I'll do it at some point. I just gotta,
You said that.
I know. I just gotta sit down and grind it. I know. I just gotta grind my dang gems and do it. But speaking of, one last thing, because I realized how long we're going. The one reason I haven't Master Duel is because I got the Yu-Gi-Oh! What's it called? Shoot, I forgot the name, but it's the collection. Hold on. It's on the tip of my tongue. Backlog.
What, Legacy of the Duelist?
No. Shoot, that's the wrong link. What do you mean it's not pulling up? Pull up. Is my server down? Of course my server will be down. Okay, I'll look at it from another place, and I'll also figure out what's going on with my server later. Yu-Gi-Oh! Early Days Collection. That's the name. You've heard of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Early Days Collection, right? Oh my goodness. No. Okay. Well, this launched not too long ago, earlier this year. And essentially it compiles all of the Game Boy Color and Game Boy Advance games into one collection. It released on Switch and Steam. And so I recently got that, and I've been playing that. And again, it's
$50.
you can get it much cheaper. You can get it much cheaper. Trust me. You can currently find it on eBay for like $30, maybe even cheaper. It did come with a copy of Harpy's Feather Duster, which again is a limited card in the TCG. Not too terribly expensive, but again, a nice card to get. It's an actual useful card to get if you actually wanted to get into playing the TCG. Unlike Legacy of the Duelist, which gave you a set of linked cards, which may have been relevant, but I don't think they're too relevant at this point. Regardless, this collection was definitely a nostalgia trip for me, and it also played into this renewed sense of wanting to get into Yu-Gi-Oh! When I grew up, I did have a copy of I forget, but it was the GBC title. It was the one GBC title that came, Dark Duel Stories, yeah. And so getting the opportunity to play that again, it's so clunky. It's so clunky. It also uses an affinity system. So unlike regular Yu-Gi-Oh!, you kind of have like a Pokemon system where depending on the affinity of your card, regardless of your attack and defense, you can destroy monsters if your card is a superior affinity to the other person's card. So it puts you in scenarios where like you could take a attack for 100 monster and destroy Kaiba's blue eyes, right? Just because the affinity is the correct one. But it was so great to kind of go back and play like a standard of Yu-Gi-Oh! That's not in this new form where, again, realistically, you're setting up boards, you're doing a lot of special summoning, you're doing a lot of like hand trapping and just trapping in general to kind of prevent your opponent from being able to play or retaliate or set up their own board. It's a lot more methodical, sort of slow paced card game, but still kind of fun. So the more modern one that I played on there was Eternal Soul of the Duelist, which adapts. It adapts a standard that was closer to what we know Yu-Gi-Oh! Is today, but again, still kind of formed off the basis of that early era of Yu-Gi-Oh! Where you still use like normal monsters instead of effect monsters, and obviously spell speed, one magic cards, and trap cards were a lot more usable than they are now. And just kind of building a traditional beatdown deck, again using cards with 1800, 1850, 1900 attack points, and just going in, being able to use Cyberstein, with his effect being if you sacrifice 5,000 attack points, you can fusion summon any fusion monster out of your deck, and I would just kind of OTK with Cyberstein into what's the triple blue eyes called? My brain's failing me. Yeah, Ultimate Blue Eyes Dragon. Yeah, so I could just go into that, and then I would just get my 4,500 attack monster, and then attach like an equip spell to it, and just OTK for game. It was fun. Summoning Skull was also pretty good back then because again, it was just a one tribute monster with one of the highest attacks in the game. So like I could just very easily get that out onto the field and kind of be unstoppable unless there was like a Raigeki or something else equivalent. Flip monsters still had a place in the meta. So like Man-Eater Bug and Magician of Faith could do nasty stuff in that game. It again, really cool just to kind of get this dichotomy of two different eras of Yu-Gi-Oh! This original era that I kind of could replicate from the GBA games, and then obviously modern Yu-Gi-Oh! That's kind of card game on crack. And I like both. I think both have their merits. I kind of like what I've seen. Again, hopefully when I actually go attend these card shops and stuff, I have a good time. And I think the main issue now with Yu-Gi-Oh! Is kind of like a Magic or similar to, well, maybe unlike Magic, because Magic has formats where everybody can play regardless of how much money you invest. I feel like Yu-Gi-Oh! Is very much a money sink in real life, not obviously in Master Duel. And so when you go to your card shops, it can be difficult if you don't spend money on the top tier decks because, obviously those decks are just so much superior to the rogue decks or the other decks. And so you can have a hard time kind of competing if you're playing with cheaper decks, which what I've bought are. But we'll see. We'll see. And all of that to say, early days collection is taking me from Master Duel because at the very least I can just kind of hop in and play. I don't have to go through that annoying grind for the gems. I guess I could just pay money to Konami for gems, but no, thank you. I do think that's cool for Master Duel though, that you can really kind of play that game without paying a dime and realistically keep pulling stuff and ultimately get to your deck, the deck that you want within a relatively decent amount of time, so long as you play it enough, obviously. But anything else you want to add on Yu-Gi-Oh? We should probably wrap up here. We'll mention one more story. We'll do it really quickly, but all
Yeah,
right.
seems good.
All right. Well, look out for more Yu-Gi-Oh stuff. Maybe I will come back from a conference this week. We'll see. Maybe I'll have something to say about Yu-Gi-Oh. Stay tuned. Finally, last thing we should touch on. The MangaDex massacre. I'm gonna let you helm this one. What is going on with MangaDex?
It just seems publishers have finally taken action against MangaDex, taken down over. Oh, I'm looking at the updated list now. It's 1,662 titles, and apparently it's not even done according to MangaDex current copyright claims FAQ. Okay, number one FAQ. MangaDex received a takedown request that affects approximately 7,000 titles.
7,000? Jeez.
And this has happened in the past 3-4 days. And according to the spreadsheet, 1662 have been identified. And it appears, the people that have sent down the takedown requests are the rights holders, which I'm assuming are the publishers.
That's insane. That's woof. Which again, I feel like we get into the conversation of, I guess, the trickiness of what MangaDex is, and what are the rights of these companies to strike down something like MangaDex, right? And where do we draw lines? Where do we support? Whatnot.
I mean, as much as I use it, but the publishers are well within their right to take
Absolutely.
it down.
I agree. And I think obviously, this notion of free internet and like more so like having access to, these types of things. I get it. There's a legitimate argument, right, of a lot of stuff that's on MangaDex we just do not have access to. And there's a dedicated group of people, scanlation teams and translators and all of that who will bring stuff that other people, don't feel like will or won't take the risk of trying to publish officially here, or it stuff will probably never see the light of day. And I think something like a MangaDex is needed for that type of thing, because again, like, we won't get it otherwise. And so the work that those types of people do is greatly appreciated. And it sucks that probably a lot of stuff we will lose. Like, obviously, if something's on the internet, it's on the internet forever. But, it'll be much harder to kind of maybe find some of that stuff if you were looking for it. On the flip side of that, obviously we love art. We love creators. We love to engage with, we just talked 2 hours about Nintendo and Yu-Gi-Oh! Both things created from passion, from creativity, right? Like the games and obviously the manga, anime, card game, whatever. People got to get paid, and lots of people will not ever buy anything, and they will just use these services because, again, it's free. You can access it. And again, going back to the argument, if it's something you can't access otherwise, then why not? Or if it's something extremely old and nobody really cares to put it back up for consumption, then sure. But like, just to make a random comment, right? Like, you could go read One Piece probably on MangaDex, but we have official means where you can both support Shueisha, Viz, Oda, whoever, through those official means. We have physical published manga. We have the Shonen Jump app. We have Manga Plus. I'm sure or at MangaDex, not MangaDex, Manga Plus. there's multiple ways that you can read Shonen Jump One Piece for cheap and support the publishers and the creators, right? And obviously, again, anything involving Shueisha with Shonen Jump properties and stuff like that, it's a lot more easier to get access to those because, they have their own dedicated app. Shonen is always going to be one of the most popular genres of manga worldwide just for its legacy and its catalog. So those are easier. Some of them you don't have access to. But again, there's a lot of companies that are doing their best to put out, official product for these types of series. And people won't support them. And, we complain that like, oh, they won't put this out. Like, for instance, Sengoku Yoko was like the past past year or so, or maybe 2 years. It was published by Tokyo Pop. They only published the first arc of books, so the first 6 books, and then silently didn't publish the rest of them. And their reasoning was like, well, we only licensed this set of books, and we may never get the rest of those fully translated, at least by an official channel to be able to purchase. Another instance was Dragon Quest Dai, which is a spin-off manga from the Dragon Quest series that features, or the Adventures of Dai, excuse me. Really, really good. Was a Shonen Jump title published by Viz. I don't know and they put out really great physical versions of it. Very nice. Silently ended publication. And I don't know if that was because of weak sales. It likely had to do with weak sales. They felt like they weren't getting a return. And I will never have a completed set of that. It just kind of abruptly ended and it upset me. And again, I'm not saying people just have to spend money. Again, there are a lot of manga that are being put out digital that you can have access to, and people only have so many limited resources. I get it. I've read on Scanlation sites before. I used to read Shonen Jump stuff on Scanlation sites before really the Shonen Jump stuff was fully available, and I think I used to read like Naruto Weekly, and there was some other stuff I used to read on these sites before I officially moved over. Point being, there's definitely a place for these types of sites. I don't think anybody should be upset that it's to take down. They're, like you said, they're fully within their right. It sucks. But in saying all this, it's just a game of whack-a-mole. You're going to knock one down, and MangaDex has been around for a while, but you're going to knock one down and then another one's just going to pop its head right back up. And so it won't be gone for long, and they'll find a new one unless they make really strong legislation to really snuff out and ban these things. But like, torrents exist. Other sites still exist. It's just Discord's exist. Well, for how long? But other.
I wonder what publishers are doing in Japan in regards to fan content or like stuff like Dojin.
Have you?
Because from what I've gleaned over past years, just being in the hobby, it seems it's kind of like an unspoken rule or respect that goes both ways from the consumers and publishers, that publishers don't really take action because they ultimately realize like their customer base is what drives sales, and going after them is not a good look. And then but they're also on the other side of that, the customers or consumers, they also comply with requests from publishers, like don't make content regarding in these areas regarding these characters or these IPs. And generally, the majority just they comply. They don't do that because why antagonize them? So this is kind of a mutual respect situation that's you don't really see anywhere else.
Yeah, I mean, which I feel like that's slightly different just because that's even in the context of like, because on the flip side, even from Japan, right, you can look at like fan works of like Nintendo stuff, for instance, fan games, right? Like, especially like during the Flash era or whatever. Not even.
Well, Nintendo's just a special case.
I wouldn't say they're entirely unique. They are kind of special, but like, I mean, I think it's just on a case by case. I think with the manga and anime industry, right? Like, I feel like it's almost like organic partnership, because I feel like a lot of the people who grind out right in the Dojin market, first of all, they're not stealing any sales from the big publishers. If anything, they probably get more eyes potentially, or
Yeah, that was part of my point earlier that they don't really go after them because they know fan made content is
yeah,
free.
yeah, and
Yeah,
so it's
free
free
advertising.
advertising. So like that's another thing of like, why would I? I can they can even collaborate if the fan artist is good enough. That's potential new talent to either make new stuff or do official works for them or whatever. So I mean I feel like Japan has figured that out, because again, and arguably I would imagine too, a lot of the people who are in the positions of power now, maybe not just the full on executive, but at least like editors and other artists and like some higher up people, they grew up in those circuits as well. So like it's one big family of interest and talent and whatever, versus something like MangaDex, right, which is really just there to like have this hosting platform for all of this content so people can access it for free. I mean, there's no, as much as I put the spin on it of like there's an archival essence there. That's not really what it's for. Again, people are doing great work, but at the end of the day, it's there to allow people
Well,
to read the stuff.
I guess recently in the past few years, like maybe since COVID, that scanlator groups are getting pretty bold in their, you know, paywalling certain things to get access to chapters for whatever series they're doing. But now MangaDex has a new official rule that it's fine if you want to redirect to your own website if you release them a little bit later for on a consistent basis. So like a week later, maybe for free. And they're putting a ban on anyone that doesn't do that. That strictly paywalls new scans and translations.
Well, yeah, but I think that also
Like scanlation's not a
yeah, it's
business.
not. But I think that also plays into a part of the wider internet of like people are, just realize more and more like I can potentially make money, and they're going to make as much money as they can until they can't anymore. I mean, it's kind of like people creating mods for a game and then paywalling mods, right? Like, and people will purchase them if they like the mods. No, I mean, I feel like a lot of time the stuff people are paying for is the horny stuff, but you know, it's just that nature. And yeah, I feel like these people feel, I don't know. I can't speak to it because I'm not in that wider discourse of, scanlators or scanlators, translators, whatever. And,
I mean, I guess mods. I can understand charging for it if it's like a fully new thing that you added to the
yeah,
game,
but I was more so talking
like new
about like
models, new content, new stuff. But
like
if it's
clothing.
just building off
Yeah.
customization or translating someone else's work, then that's not
Yep.
the same.
Nope, I agree. I 100%.
But 7,000 titles is crazy.
It is insane. Very sweeping. I'm surprised that they're just still up and they didn't just fully like just bring the site down. But maybe there was something in the litigation or the DMCA that was like, we're gonna like pick this apart. I don't know, but kind of insane.
I think they're just bulk nuking a lot of things, and then if it's not really an issue, people can put it back up. But I think for now, they're recommending do not upload anything until they're confirmed it's not affected.
Mm.
They've added a new checkbox to uploaders that say I have permission from the rights holders, just for liability reasons.
Well, we'll see what happens with the site. Again, just another haven, another bastion gone down. But again, if MangaDex fully falls, another will rise up in its place, and it'll do its thing until the next time that the publishers, coordinate to fully bring it down. But I would definitely lead on this to say of like, as much as possible, support the series that you love. You may not support every publisher or everything like that, and obviously vote with your wallet. And nobody's trying to be the law police or the like what's the word I'm looking for? Nobody's trying to be like, "Oh, well you should just always support with money." I mean, part of support is just engaging with the art, and if you really like the art, pursue it. But just if you can at some point, buy the official release, buy it digitally, rent it, go to your libraries. They do buy manga and stuff. But
There was one mangaka I followed in particular that released, well, I guess in the past year, that uh, they write a Love Bullet, and they put out one volume, but it wasn't really popular enough to get continued until, of course, fans translated it, published it, and got more supporters, and everyone was submitting recommendations or reviews or requests to continue the series to the publisher, and I believe they got another
oh, that's
volume.
awesome. And again, that's the power of fans, right? So like on the same token of purchasing what you love, just even supporting it in whatever way you can and letting, you know, both the artists and the publishers know, like, I want more of this will really do a lot. To go back to video games just for a second, Xenoblades may not have been as huge as it was if it was not for Project Rainfall and people being like, Nintendo of America, you're stupid. We want Xenoblade and The Last Story and Pandora's Tower or whatever. And now Xenoblade's a huge series, and obviously it's huge around the world, not just in America. But again, it could have been a different timeline for that series. There's quite a few Shonen Jump titles that have come and gone very quickly. Zip Man was one I liked a lot that unfortunately did not make it, and I wish there were more people who would have rallied for that one and we got more from it, but it is what it is. Martial arts master Asumi, I think, is a recent one. Again, I really like, there's all sorts of series that probably deserve more of a chance than they've gotten. And like you said, or from that example, if you show your support and you show your willingness to put some money into it, you'll potentially get what you want, or you'll potentially see more of that thing that you love. But yeah, I think that's it. I think that wraps us up. I don't want to hold us on too much longer. You have any closing thoughts on any of the topics that we talked about?
Uh, we'll see you next year.
Omerito, right? Yeah. Well, we will see you next time. Whenever that next time may be. Look forward to Switch 2. Hopefully here in the future we'll have more to say on it. Hopefully it'll be a good launch. I don't hope that it's a bad launch. I just hope the prices come down somewhat across the board to make it more reasonable for everybody to kind of get a chance to experience the system. And if not, I don't think the original Switch is going to die off. Now's the time to get your Switch stuff. So yeah. With that said, I hope you enjoyed this episode. Give us a follow if you would like to hear more, and we will see you next time.